to record this several times. The first time, it just didn't record. I thought it was recording, and it didn't. The second time, it recorded, but the audio was horrible.
So, let's talk a little bit more about the Joytutus 23-liter fridge.
What I did get a good video of was unboxing this. So, let's watch a video of that. So I have something to review that's going to be a major part of my kitchen once I get everything set up in here. You know, once I'm more than like metal walls, I actually have bungee cords for these things up. But anyway, so that is going to be a new critical part of my kitchen. It wasn't something I was looking to get offered. And as you can see, my IceCo unit is over here, and it's been running as my primary fridge, and it's been running off of the Jackery. Well, this is going to help my kitchen situation. Let's get it open. So you might be thinking, Dawn, your cup runneth over with fridges. This is slightly true. Now, I was planning at some point in the future to maybe get a smaller IceCo unit that I could use as a dedicated freezer. I saw somebody else do this, because I don't think I need an even split between fridge and freezer. So, like, getting a dual zone unit, I would have an even split. But what I saw in somebody else's build, and I think they had it in a bus, I think it was a bus build, was they had one fridge that was a fridge, and then they had a small fridge that they were using as a freezer. Most single zone units can be a fridge or a freezer. So what I'm going to do with the smaller unit, hopefully, if it runs well, is use it as my dedicated freezer. I was sent this for free to review, so I am going to be reviewing it. And if it can freeze, it can definitely refrigerate. So now that things are back on track for me and little Mickey here, I'm finally circling back to doing a review of our new freezer that he is doing his Vanlife thing and showing off at the moment. And I like to talk about how awesome and affordable this little 12-volt car fridge is. Now, I say 12 volt, but like almost every other freezer unit out there, it comes with a wall plug, and you can use it in a house or just pre-chill it in a house using the standard household outlet. But most of us are just going to throw this in our vans and plug it into the 12 volt and be ready to go. Now, I say 12 volt, but this fridge can actually be used as a 12 volt or 24 volt DC system. Now, I will mostly call it a freezer because that's how I'm using it, but you'd be under no obligation to use it that way. It can operate as a fridge. It just depends on what temperature setting you get it. A setting that'll freeze or a setting that will refrigerate. I personally, once I got it out of the box, honestly, it sat a day or two. I plugged it in and threw some frozen stuff in it. Well, I set it to a freezing temperature first, then I put frozen stuff in it, and then I just gave it the day. And sure enough, by the end of the day, my frozen food was still frozen. Now, I was supposed to be a good YouTuber and actually film it getting cold, but honestly, like, it got cold pretty fast. And I know pretty fast isn't a number, but before the end of the day, I had frozen food that was still frozen. But the real test for me was ice. So I got a couple of ice trays from the store. I put some water in an ice tray and I threw it in my freezer. And I was kind of like, okay, it's keeping frozen food frozen, but will it really make ice? Now, those of you who have been around long enough might have seen when I went on a trip this past summer in my camper van that I used to have. I bought an ice maker. It's one of those tabletop units that you just put water in and it's supposed to produce ice. And basically, it was really a lot bigger than it looked like it was going to be. And on top of that, it just didn't work. And so it went back to the store immediately. And I didn't really know if I would ever have a way to have ice in my off-grid tiny life experience at all. And then I got this little unit. And sure enough, I put ice in it in the evening, and by the morning, let me just open this up right here. I had ice. I have had ice every day since I did my little experiment. Perfectly good frozen ice, like frozen solid ice, just as good as any fridge I've ever had in an on-grid house. Whew. Here we go. I need 2 hands to do this. We're gonna put this gently back down in here. During COVID, it was interesting trying to go into stores and get ice, which was something I commonly did, and it was usually places that had fountain machines. And because of COVID, people didn't really want fountain machines out and everywhere for everybody to touch and use, so that resource became limited to non-existent. So I really like that now I can just make ice. In the morning, I typically make hot tea, and it's usually so hot after I've boiled the water. Once the tea seeps a little bit, I like to throw a couple of ice cubes in there just to get it a little close to the drinking temperature. And so now I get to do that every morning. After a while, I had to give it up. After I made the tea, I just had to let it sit, and I kept sipping slightly until it seemed like now every morning I can just throw that one little ice cube in there, and it's a drinkable temperature. Mickey, what are you doing? I'm trying to record a review. So my biggest fear, once I had my freezer set up, was power draw. Because I'm running everything off. Well, I guess you can't see it, but there's a Jackery 1000 back there behind this ice cold fridge. Mickey! Cats. So I was already running this full-time as my full-time fridge, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And here I was not only adding a second unit, but adding a unit that I wanted to keep at freezing temperature all of the time. So I was worried. Would the Jackery be able to handle both of them? And honestly, this Joytutus fridge handled everything as well as the Iceco fridge as far as, like, monitoring its power use. Like, during most of the day, they're hardly sipping on power as long as they're up to temp. Every once in a while, you know, they get to that point where they need to pull a little bit more power to get things up to temp, but mostly, power draw hasn't been too bad. Keeping the fridge and the freezer going hasn't been really that much harder than just keeping the fridge going as far as like power draw and power use. Now, the Joytutus fridge has a number of settings that you can use to regulate your power draw, power use, etc., however you want to think of it. It has a max and an eco mode, and basically max means it's prioritizing, you know, getting to temperature, and eco means it's going to conserve as much power as possible while maintaining temperature. So you may see more variables on eco mode than you do when you see on max mode, because on max mode it's prioritizing, you know, getting to that temperature that you set and staying there. It also has a medium, high, and low battery setting. And basically that's the battery protection setting that is very common in good fridges. My Dometic had a battery protection setting. This Iceco has a battery protection setting where if it is drawing too much of your battery, it'll just cut itself off because the voltage of the battery is too low. Obviously, none of us want our food to go bad, but we also don't want our expensive batteries to go to crap because the fridge drained them to zero. So pick your battles. I haven't really had a huge problem. Honestly, there was like one night, and it was totally my fault because I drained almost everything out the Jackery for dumb reasons. But honestly, overnight, turned them back on the next morning, and they were pretty darn close to temp because they had been shut all night. So even that wasn't a killer on power draw. But point being, there's a number of settings on this, and this has a really, really cool display that is right on top of the unit. And one of my videos that actually turned out okay was me going through these settings. So let's watch that now. Alright, so here is the screen, as it were. You might notice that there is a lock on here. So one of the cool things about this screen is that after it gets to temperature and you haven't touched it a while, it'll just go into a lock so that, especially because the controls are on top, you can accidentally hit all these buttons and it's not going to change any of your controls, and it's going to let you know I'm locked. You can't do any of that. You can't even turn me off like manually because it's locked. Also good, when you take it out the box, this can be taken off, but it has this cool instruction sheet here, which helps you get started, because I know most people like me just kind of pull it out the box and throw the instructions to the side and don't actually read them. And then there's another little thing here that you can't really read. I'm gonna put it on here. But basically it says, I guess you can't read it on here either. It's basically a tip that says that the refrigerator may be inverted during delivery. So to ensure the proper operation of the compressor, please keep the refrigerator standing upright, which is the correct position that it's in right now, for 12 hours before using it again. And I did unbox it and leave it sitting for a day before I started to use it. But that was also because I didn't have time for it. But just know you should do this. And I did it this time mostly because I was forced to because of the situation, not because I was being aware. But you should probably do that, you know, if you're in a situation. So let's look again at these controls. Again, it's gone up to 14 degrees. As you can saw, the ice is still frozen. Usually, like, it floats between like 10 and 15. I have not successfully gotten it to go lower, and I haven't tested it out as a fridge, but like I said, if it'll hold temperature as a freezer, it'll definitely hold temperature as a fridge. Now, let's say you're like, I do want to change the temperature. How do I unlock this? Well, you hold this button right here, and eventually it'll go, oh, you actually depressed that for a long time, so you must want to actually unlock it. To change the temperature, you can just go up here or down. And as you can see, my base temperature is set at 10 because that seems to be a great holding temperature. And then after a while, it'll pop back to 14 because that's the temperature it's actually at right now, and trying to get itself, you know, back down to 10. And like I said, it usually floats between 10 and 15, and it has absolutely no effect on the food being any more or less frozen. But if you wanted to use this as a fridge, you could easily hold this until you got it up to, like, I don't know, like 40 degrees or something like that. And because it's so cold right now, if you left it there, basically it would just stop pulling power. And I just heard the compressors like stop trying until it got up to 40 degrees. Now this is my freezer, so we're not going to do that. We're going to go back down to 10. As you can see, it's really easy to use. The first time I had to get out of unlock, I struggled a little bit, but that's because I was being impatient. Not because there's anything like wrong with the system. All right, so one of the other features of this fridge, you'll see the letter M right here. M is for medium battery protection. So this is your battery protection, so that if you are in a situation, let's say it's very, very hot, and so this thing is really struggling. It's fighting the heat, and it's been pulling a lot of power, and your battery power starts dropping. A lot of people don't like this because, like, their fridges will pop off. But believe me, you do want to protect your batteries. This is not a weakness of the refrigerator. Any good refrigerator should have this. It means you really need to think about how much power you have and if you need more, and if your battery bank actually has the ability to run what you are trying to run. The Jackery 1000, like I said, has had no problem running both this and my refrigerator and all the other stuff I want to charge in a day since I upgraded my solar. That's going to be a completely separate video, and I'll talk about where my solar is right now. But we locked back up, so I'm gonna go ahead and unlock it because you can't change any controls as long as it's locked. And then, oh, I forgot to talk about the Eco and Max. So you have Eco and Max right here. And so max means it's not going to conserve. It's going to do its best to keep everything up to temp. It's really easy for this to pop out. So there you go. So there is, now I'm actually operating. Sorry, I kind of messed up the controls. But so there's your max and there's your Eco. Max is just going to go for it. On Eco, it's going to be kind of conservative about keeping temperature to use the least amount of energy. Because this is a freezer, not a refrigerator, I've been keeping it on max and it's been fine for me. And if I hold down this button, now I can change my battery protection. Ah, shoot, I keep messing up. Sorry, guys. My instincts make me want to do things that aren't correct. But there we are. So now that that's flashing, I can go low, medium, or high battery protection. I like to default to medium for my battery protection. If you feel pretty confident in your battery system, you can make it low, and this thing will keep pumping out until it has no more energy to pull. If this was on refrigerator mode, the only change I think I would make is make this eco instead of max, but because it's a freezer and being used as a freezer, I have it set to max. That is a personal choice. You could use it as a freezer instead of a refrigerator and make a completely opposite choice. You can also make your battery protection low or high instead of medium. I think a medium battery protection works for me. Like I said, I love this screen. I actually like it more than the Dometic screen for a couple of reasons. One, the fact that it's on top, so it's easily viewable. It's not on like the side of the body. The display is really bright. I also like the battery voltage display on here. I don't know if it's reading correctly because of the Jackery. Like, I don't know that this is actually correct. But all that matters is that it is keeping the temperature that I would like it to keep so that my food is kept safe, frozen, and good to go when I'm ready to go. So honestly, one of the things I love most about this fridge is that, aesthetically speaking, these two things look like they go together. They're not quite the same. This is more like a gray. This is sort of an off black. Is that even a color? Off black. But like the color scheme is close enough that they feel like they go together. They feel like they were bought to be together, even though they weren't. This was a complete accident. Both of these units were sent to me for review, and it just so happened I was already planning actually to look into the ice cold units because I love them so much, and look at a smaller one maybe that could act as my freezer. But this Joytutus fridge, which even if I bought it, like, is a really affordably priced fridge, is doing the job excellently. Like, I have no complaint. Like, I wish I had this in my minivan camper. My Dometic was great in the Chevy camper van, but in my minivan camper, I would kind of wish I had this more than the fridge I had, because this one just operates so well. What I also love about this particular unit is that it opens in the front, which is also how the Iceco opens. So again, it goes with that aesthetic thing of these two things just feeling like they go together. And that's not really, it should not be a make or break in your decision to get a fridge or a freezer. It can look aesthetically nice and not operate well, but this is actually operating really well, and I like that they open the same way, and that'll be really good when I get to the final design of the BoxTruck. No, I'm not always going to be living in a metal box with metal walls. I plan to do better than that in the future. That being said, that's one of my favorite phrases. That being said, there really is no latching mechanism on this, and it does feel plasticky in comparison to the Iceco. It feels very much like a metal chest. The Iceco also has an actual latch where I know that I've closed the fridge and that I'm really depressing the seal onto the refrigerator so that it's, having its most efficient ability to sort of keep temp, because there is a latch on this. I know that it's closed. Don't have any sort of latching system here. The Dometic in my camper van that I sold, the Chevy van, did have a latching mechanism on the lid. When you lifted it up, you could hear it when you opened and closed it. This has no latch at all. But it is really hard to open, and it does have a rubber seal around here. It's good that it's hard to open because it has to do with the different temperatures inside and out. It's a good thing. So I am very confident that almost all of the time, like, this is good and closed. You saw how I struggled to open it before, because when I was trying to put my ashtray back. So, like, even though it doesn't have that latching mechanism that not only was on this, but was on my Dometic in the Chevy camper van I sold, I feel very confident that this is good and shut as it can be without, like, an actual cover being on here keeping it closed. So I am pretty excited about it. despite it not having a latching system. It also really surprised me how much this little unit holds for its size. Now, in the footage with the horrible audio, I did a whole thing of me like pulling stuff out of this fridge. It just sounds really horrible, the audio.
Like how much food I have in here. Well, let's take a look, shall we? Let's see, we got some vegetable stir fry, we got some salmon, we got roasted vegetables, we got some chow mein stir fry. I really love stir fry because you can just make it, split it up into a couple of meals, throw some protein with it, and boom, you have a full meal. So anyway, we got some more stir fry. So this little fridge has a lot in it. We got another little...
But having this freezer has really changed my life, all jokes aside. I love having a freezer again, and I feel like if you were using this as a fridge, you'd be as happy with it as I am. And if you're looking for something affordable, this is definitely in the affordable and good category. So yeah, like it's working excellently. It's keeping items frozen. It is not creating a huge power draw. There are little handles on the side that make it easy to lift up. This has an actual handle, but this has, you know, those handles that you can slip your hands in and sort of lift it up. I love the display. I love that the display is on the top. The display also has a USB port on it. I'm fiddling around like you guys can see up close, but there's a USB port on the unit. If you're looking for an affordable fridge, definitely look at the Joytutus. It's doing great. If you have any questions about the unit, drop it in the comments and I'll try to answer them. I will say the larger units the larger Joytutus units, this is a 23 quart, I think. The larger units open the other way, the way my Dometic used to open and the way the one in my minivan camper used to open, where it opens this way instead of from the front. And that's a common design for larger units like that. The Iceco is an outlier because it has this sort of chest design that I really do like. But also like I didn't expect to like this. I would not have looked for this, and I am so surprised how well it works over everything. I mean, the aesthetic things is great, but the way it works for the price that it's set at is really surprising and encouraging, because getting semi-nice units at an affordable price was not a thing just like 3 or 4 years ago, let alone now. So there will be links to the Joytutus fridges in the description of this video. I feel like it's a great buy. I feel like it's an efficient fridge. I've been able to run both of these off of the Jackery 24 hours a day. Now, mind you, reminder, my Jackery is hooked up to solar, so as soon as the sun comes out, it's getting sun, and it's getting sun until the moment that the sun goes down. And that's a whole other discussion about the Jackery itself as a unit for running a fridge 24/7, let alone a fridge and a freezer. But the power draw has not really changed so much that my life has been affected. And so it makes me feel really good about it. I'm repeating myself now, and that usually means it's time to wrap up the video. Alright guys, so that's it for another video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If anybody's looking for a fridge, I hope you do look into the Joytutus brand of fridge, especially if you're looking for something that's fairly affordable and will work. So, as always, I would like to thank my Patreon and YouTube membership supporters. As you can see, the scroll is back because I now have my laptop back, and so I can do that. And I updated the list, so like I think everybody is on it. I'm playing catch up on a lot of things, guys, including those stickers that I still haven't gotten out to some of my Patreon and YouTube memberships people. I'm so sorry, guys. I am working on that. I am working on being better, and I'm also working on bringing back my health and fitness updates to my other channel, Dawn's Break Room. I moved them over there because there were all kinds of people who were like, I'm not interested in this content, and so they got really disinterested in it, and the views for it weren't great, so I just moved it over to another channel. So if you're interested in that, you can check that out on the Dawn's Break Room channel. I'll try to link it at the end of this video. And otherwise, guys, have a good day, and I'll see you in the next one.